All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, everyone has a different way of starting to build the application. I'm starting to work with displaying all the vegetables on the screen. All right. Now you can see that I've already created the project and I'm calling the project Green Thumb. Why Green Thumb? Well, if you search online, what does it actually mean? Green Thumb means, you can see that it says that Green Thumb is basically for talent for gardening, growing plants. So if somebody says that Green Thumb, they're skilled at keeping plants healthy and thriving. All right, so that's basically the meaning of Green Thumb, and that's what we're building. Now, the first question you might ask, like, where is the data coming from? I mean, we need information about all the vegetables, pests. We need pictures, beautiful pictures of plants and vegetables. Where is all that going to come from? Well, the good thing is that I've already added the JSON file on my own website, azamsharp.com. And you can see it's a pretty big JSON file. It's like 200 kilobyte, and it has all of the things that you need. It has the vegetable ID, all of that stuff. You can see that. And it also has thumbnail image. There you go, right there, which is basically the image itself. So if I click on it, I can see the image. All right. So it has all of these things. It also has pest information, as you can see. So it has a lot of stuff. So we can definitely use this information and display it on the screen. So I'm just going to copy the URL. And in order to fetch the information, I'm going to create a vegetable HTTP client. Now, this app is kind of simple in a way that we will not really be communicating with the server. For posting, we're only going to get the data, and then when we add the data to our own garden, we will put it in our SwiftData database. All right. So if you want, you can actually make a request right here. That's perfectly fine too. But just to keep things a little bit separate, I'm going to move the request somewhere else. But before I do that, let's go ahead and refactor this. And maybe I should rename this particular view. Let's call it Vegetable List Screen. Okay, so it's called Vegetable List Screen because this screen will, well, list all the vegetables. All right. Now somebody is going to be passing the vegetable to the vegetable list screen, and that somebody we can work on that a little bit later. Right now, I just want to work on, well, can I actually display the vegetables or not? Let me go ahead and create a new folder. I will call it clients. And I'll add a new file. Let's call this vegetable http client.swift. So this is the file, the Swift file, the HTTP client, which is going to be responsible for making a request and getting all the stuff. So I'll just call it HTTP client. It only has a single function, which is fetch vegetables. And it's going to return something, right? I mean, we don't really have that something. So I'll say vegetable. But the question is, well, how do we return vegetable? We don't even have a vegetable right now. So this function, although we're on the right track, but it's not really going to work. It's not even going to build because we don't really have that model. Now, there are multiple ways of creating this model. I can create a DTO, which stands for, if I go over here and, write over here DTO. What is DTO? DTO is the data transfer object. And the data transfer object, basically when we are sending back JSON, we can send a very plain kind of an object. We can send JSON, it will map to a very plain kind of an object, which is known as DTO. So over here, they're giving you an example of user DTO, and then you're going to get that DTO and mainly map it to the model eventually. All right. You can definitely use that approach. That is perfectly fine. But what I've learned is that if I create my vegetable, the class or the model, which will be based on all of this data, all of this, because we need to display all of this information on the screen. So I can create a DTO which has all of these different properties, string or integers and arrays and all that stuff. Or I can create a SwiftData model and make it codable. Now, keep in mind that you have to be very careful with this approach. If you're working on a large application and you're getting this data from a third party where you don't have any control on the data or the structure that is going to be returned, it is best to create a DTO model, because if this means that if the actual response from the server changes, your SwiftData model doesn't really have to change, right? But in this particular case, I am the server. This is my own server. I control it. I can return anything I want. So, although I can create a vegetable DTO and that DTO can populate my SwiftData model, definitely I can do that. But I can also avoid creating the DTO, because if something happens, if I want to change something on the server, well, then I can change it on the server and I can change it on the client. So I have complete control over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder for models. Now, keep that in mind that this technique that I'm showing you, it is not suitable for every single scenario. If you are dealing with some sort of a URL and the response, you don't control the response, you don't own it, then it's better to create a DTO and map everything through the DTO. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and create a new empty file. Let's call it vegetable. There we go. Now, I'm not going to create a DTO for this. I'm simply going to go ahead and use the SwiftData model. All right. So I'm going to create a class, vegetable, and I'm going to make it decodable, because right on this particular class, we're just going to decode it. All right. We don't have another DTO sitting in the middle. So the response, so this is, if this is our, vegetable model that we have just created, it's just going to get the data directly from the JSON. And there is no DTO in the middle. It's just directly going to be decoded to this vegetable model. Now, what properties do we need in this? Well, there are a lot of properties, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all of these properties. There we go. Okay, I got most of these properties over here, but I also need to make sure that the vegetable is decodable. So how do you make it decodable? So once I have these properties, and by the way, you can use ChatGPT also. All right, so I can actually, copy all of this stuff, and I can try to use ChatGPT for this. I can say make vegetable decodable, and here's vegetable. So maybe it will implement the init function, and that is the init function we can actually use. So let's go ahead and see that what it does. Okay, so it's generating some sort of a code. Let's see if it actually requires the initializer or not, which is required when you are decoding it. Okay, so it's creating coding keys. Coding keys over here, although it's trying to create that, I don't think that we will have to change it a little bit. All right, and there we go. So it's writing all the code for you. All the code, this is kind of like a grunt work, right? So it's actually doing all of this stuff for you. Okay. Now, if you look at the property names over here, all of these properties are in Pascal case. So we need to make sure that they map correctly to our properties in the vegetable over here, which are in camel case. For that, I'm going to go ahead and create coding keys. And by the way, again, all of this stuff, you can actually do that with ChatGPT. Now, if you want, you can also create a custom JSON encoding. You can do that, or a strategy. But over here, I'm just gonna write all of this stuff out, and I'm going to map it to the correct one. So you can see name over here maps to name, body over here maps to description. This is what the server is returning. And now I can also go ahead and implement the required function, which the initializer, all of this, see that? All of this. So this is a lot of stuff going on over here, right? So I can just copy it over here. There we go. And all of this is generated by ChatGPT, so that's actually the good part. Let's go ahead and build it. And let's go back to the HTTP client, because now we should be able to return something. And I'm going to write the minimum amount of code that I can write to return the vegetables. All right. So we're going to use, this is going to be an async function. So let's go ahead and decorate it with async throws. URLSession.shared.data. And this one, not this one actually, we need the URL one, right? So now keep in mind that I'm just making it super simple. Now we can actually, go into more detail. Like I'm just going to hard code all of these things over here. So let's just go put the URL. Now your URL might be coming from some configuration and all that stuff. So I'm ignoring all of that stuff. I'm just making it super simple so that I can achieve it in only a couple of lines of code. All right, so this is our try await, and now I can perform JSON decoder dot decode, and then I can say vegetable.self data try and also return. All right, super simple, just decoding it to the vegetable model that we just created and returning it. Nice and simple. All right. So now the question is, well, where do we use it? Let's go to the vegetable list screen. And in the vegetable list screen, when this particular thing loads, right over here, probably after padding or before padding, we can use a task modifier. And inside the task modifier, I can create a client, vegetable client dot fetch vegetables. Okay, if I'm fetching the vegetable, it has to be using try await because it is a async function. It is going to return the vegetables, so we're just going to put it into a vegetables. There we go. State private var vegetables vegetable state variable. And I believe we have to also wrap all of this stuff with do try print error.local something. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to see if the application builds successfully or not. Okay, that's fine. So it might be making a call and getting all the vegetables, but how do we display it? Well, in order to display it, we will need to use list vegetables, and we just want to display right now the name of the vegetable so that we have some idea that, well, we're able to get the vegetable or not. If we can display the name, that's going to be a success. And there we go. Awesome. Look at that. All these vegetables are being displayed. They're getting from the database or from our server, basically. Okay. We can also go ahead and say list style plain. There we go, looking good. And eventually we are going to be moving this call out somewhere else, but at least we can see that we are able to load all the vegetables and display it on the screen. Once again, keep in mind that making your vegetable model, which is your SwiftData model, decodable, which means that you're going to be decoding or mapping your JSON into it, it really depends on the scenario basis. And as I mentioned earlier on, that the reason that I'm doing that is that I am in complete control of the server, and I can actually change the server or the client. All right. Actually, I'm just thinking that maybe I shouldn't have renamed it to in Pascal case, so that we can just remove all of this stuff, right? Because I am in control, I can do that. Okay. So this is great, good first step. We're able to display all the vegetables. This is great. Now, in the next lecture, we'll be looking at that how we can make it look better, because right now it's just the names, but we want to show the names. We want to, show the image associated with it and so on. So stay tuned for that. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out azamsharp.school. Azamsharp.school is one of the largest collection of iOS development videos. I have courses on everything that you can imagine for iOS development. This includes Skip, AI for iOS developer, full stack e-commerce app development using SwiftUI Node, Postgres, SwiftUI architecture, Supabase, Firebase, Firestore, core data, full stack iOS development using Vapor. Oh, it's just so much courses, so much to learn, right? Test-driven development, MapKit, Reality Kit, machine learning, so many courses. And I also host workshops. Now, these workshops are 3.5 hour long, and they are very, very hands-on. The next workshop coming up is on February 7th, but you can always look at the workshop pages and enroll for these workshops. You can enroll for these things by purchasing individual courses, or you can also become a monthly or annual member and you get access to the workshop for free. This is a pretty awesome deal. So hopefully you have enjoyed it, and thank you so much, and make sure to share the video, and I will see you as an Azam Sharp member. Thank you.